Hi everyone. From the coast of Barcelona, I travel south to Valencia. I arrive by train. The station is busy, bright, and under construction. People are moving in every direction with backpacks and suitcases. I step outside and immediately the Plaza de Toros dominates the view, Valencia's old bull ring. A huge brick circle that feels almost Roman, squeezed between traffic barriers and cafes. I drop my bags at the hostel and start walking, letting the city pull me in. I pass the facade of the Church of St. Thomas and St. Philip Neri, an unmistakable Baroque landmark built in the early 18th century. It was inspired by the Church of Gesù in Rome and designed by Father Thomas Vincent Tosca, a mathematician. The streets tighten and I turn a corner and suddenly the cathedral rises in front of me. Massive, layered with Romanesque, Gothic and Baroque history. Valencia doesn't announce its past. It just stands quietly and waits for you to notice. The Gothic tower next to the cathedral is called El Micalet, built between 1381 and 1429, an octagonal bell tower that became one of the city's permanent landmarks. The cathedral itself sits on layers of history. Once a Roman temple, then a Visigothic church, then a mosque, and finally a cathedral. If you climb its 207 stone steps, you get panoramic views of the city. Right next to the cathedral is a softer Baroque building, the Basilica of Our Lady of the Forsaken. Locals call the statue inside La Gepardureta, the little hunchback, because she leans forward as if she is listening. Construction began in 1652 on the site of the old Roman Forum, making this square a center of faith and everyday life for almost 2000 years. I step into the Plaza de la Mare de Diu, possibly the most Valencian place in Valencia. In the center is the Turia Fountain, sculpted in 1976. The reclining figure represents the Turia River. The 8 women around him symbolize ancient irrigation channels that once fed Valencia's orchards. This city learned to survive on water long before tourists arrived with cameras. And then, out of nowhere, a group of children walk past me in traditional falera outfits. Huge embroidered skirts, lace collars, and intricate hair buns pinned with gold. It's part of the Falas tradition, Valencia's wild spring celebration of music, fireworks, and giant sculptures that eventually get burned. I step inside the Basilica for afternoon mass. The noise from the square fades, replaced by soft echoes and candlelight. The interior has an oval layout, and above me the dome is filled with vivid frescoes painted in 1701 by Antonio Palomino. Beneath the streets of modern Valencia, beneath the cafes and the cathedral stones, there is another city quietly holding its breath. This is not metaphorical, it's literal. What you are walking over today was once the beating heart of a Roman colony called Valencia Edetanorum, founded in 138 BC by Roman veterans who had earned land, citizenship, and a future through war. Rome did not build cities casually. Every new colony was a statement, order imposed on geography, law imposed on chaos, stone imposed on memory. Valencia was planned the Roman way, on a grid, disciplined and deliberate. 2 main streets cut across each other, the Cardo running north-south and the Decumanus running east-west. Where they crossed stood the Forum, the center of civic life. If Rome had a soul, this was where it stood. As you move through these underground spaces today, you're not just seeing ruins. You're seeing the skeleton of a functioning city. Granaries, baths, public squares, fountains, council halls, everything required to turn conquered land into Roman land. Take the Horium for instance, the Roman granary. It wasn't just a warehouse, it was power. Grain meant survival, stability, and political control. The Horium stood close to the forum for a reason. Food supply was a matter of governance. Whoever controlled grain controlled the city. The structure was massive, built with heavy stone blocks, thick walls, narrow aisles designed to preserve food and protect it from humidity, pests, and theft. Standing here now, with only fragments left, it's easy to forget that this was once full of grain, movement, noise, and purpose. Nearby was the forum itself, a vast public square surrounded by porticos, temples, statues, and administrative buildings. This was where markets buzzed, laws were announced, disputes argued, and power displayed. Rome governed through visibility. Authority had to be seen. The Curia, the city's senate house, stood close by. This was where local elites gathered to debate, decide, and perform the rituals of Roman civic life. Politics here wasn't abstract. It was physical, embodied in stone benches, formal layouts, and carefully choreographed space. Even the architecture enforced hierarchy. And then there was water, always water. Roman cities were obsessed with it. Clean water, flowing water, public water. In Valencia, the Nymphaeum was not merely a fountain. It was prestige carved in stone. Dedicated originally to the nymphs, spirits of water and health, it symbolized abundance, divine favor, and urban sophistication. Water flowed constantly through sprouts into long basins meant to be seen and heard. This wasn't just infrastructure, it was propaganda. A city with monumental water features announced itself as prosperous, civilized, and Roman. For a while, Valencia thrived, and then, abruptly, it didn't. In 75 BCE, barely 60 years after its founding, the city was destroyed, not by barbarians, not by invaders from outside the empire, but by Rome itself. During a brutal civil war between rival Roman generals, Valencia sided with the losing faction. The punishment was swift and merciless. The city was sacked, burnt, and effectively erased. Buildings collapsed. Streets fell silent. Life drained out. Archaeology captures this moment with uncomfortable clarity. Layers of ash, broken walls, abandoned structures, human remains frozen in the ground where they fell. You don't need imagination here. The violence is recorded in earth. For decades after its destruction, Valencia lay abandoned. Grass grew where debates once echoed. Rubble covered the forum. The Roman grid dissolved into absence. But cities, like memories, are stubborn. Slowly, life returned. Over time, new structures rose atop the old, not erasing them but reusing them. Roman baths gave way to workshops, public spaces became industrial ones, a factory appeared producing everyday goods, olive oil, wine, garum, the fermented fish sauce Romans loved. Amphorae littered the floors, crushed under collapse, preserved in failure. And then came another transformation, quieter but deeper. Christianity arrived. Near these same ruins, traditions tell us, Saint Vincent was imprisoned and martyred during Roman persecutions. The site of punishment became a site of memory. Industry faded, worship replaced commerce. What had once been civic space became sacred ground. Burial practices changed too. Monumental tombs appeared, carefully oriented, richly symbolic. Death was no longer just an end. It was testimony. Bodies were laid to rest with glass vessels, jewelry, inscriptions, not displays of wealth but statements of belief. Walking through the gallery today, past stone fragments arranged like silent sentences, you can feel the shift. Roman Valencia wasn't destroyed once. It was destroyed, rebuilt, reinterpreted, and absorbed, layer by layer. And above all of this, centuries later, rose the Valencia we recognize today. The cathedral stands directly over the Roman Forum. Gothic arches sit where Roman porticos once framed the sky. Bells ring where senators argued. The city never moved, it simply stacked itself. That glass floor you walk across is not a gimmick. It's an admission, an acknowledgement that modern life rests on accumulated past, some glorious, some violent, all unresolved. This underground museum doesn't just preserve ruins. It preserves continuity. It reminds us that cities are born, not whole. They are assembled from ambition, error, collapse, and reinvention. Valencia began as a reward for soldiers. It became a Roman city. It was destroyed by Roman hands. It was reborn through Roman resilience, reshaped by faith, and carried forward by time. And today, as visitors pass quietly through these corridors, reading panels, pausing at stones, looking down into the earth, the city continues its longest habit of all, remembering itself. From Roman ruins, I decided to head next to the highlight of Valencia that I had come here for, the Oceanographic. What you are seeing now is the Oceanographic, the largest aquarium complex in Europe and one of the most ambitious marine science spaces in the world. Built as part of the City of Arts and Sciences, it isn't just an aquarium in the traditional sense. It is an attempt to map the planet's oceans physically, ecologically, and emotionally in one continuous walk. The Oceanographic was designed to represent the major marine ecosystems of Earth, each housed in its own architectural and climatic environment. You don't simply move from tank to tank, you move from one part of the planet to another here. In scale alone, this place is staggering. It holds tens of millions of liters of water and hundreds of species, from microscopic life to some of the largest animals humans have kept in captivity. Only a handful of aquariums globally, in places like Georgia, Osaka, or Dubai, compare in sheer volume. In Europe, nothing else comes close. But size isn't the point here, structure is. The journey begins in warm, shallow ecosystems, Mediterranean waters that feel familiar, almost gentle. Fish drift past reefs that mirror coastlines not far from where you are standing. This is the sea as most people know it, accessible, navigable, human adjacent. Then the climate shifts. You move into tropical oceans where light sharpens, colors intensify, and biodiversity explodes. Coral structures rise like underwater cities. Fish no longer blend in, they advertise themselves. Survival here is not about hiding, it's about visibility, speed, and adaptation. And from there, the environment deepens, literally and metaphorically, into the open ocean. Massive tanks curve around you, blurring the boundary between viewer and the viewed. Sharks, rays, and large pelagic species move with an indifference that's unsettling. These are animals that don't acknowledge us because, evolutionarily speaking, they don't need to. The architecture reinforces that feeling. Thick glass, slow movement, silence broken only by water and breath. You are no longer observing a habitat, you are being allowed inside it. Around the midpoint of this visit, the tone changes again. Nowhere more clearly than in the dolphinarium. The Dolphin Show isn't presented as a spectacle alone. It is structured around communication, intelligence, and cooperation. The dolphins respond to subtle cues. Movements are synchronized, interactions are precise. What's impressive is not the jumps, it is the relationship. The trainers don't dominate the animals, they negotiate with them. Every action you see is the result of trust built over time. It's easy to forget, watching this, that dolphins possess complex social structures, self-recognition, and problem-solving abilities rivaling many land animals. The show doesn't shout that at you, it lets you notice it. final stretch takes you into polar ecosystems, the Arctic and the Antarctic, where life operates under entirely different rules. Light fades, colors flatten, movement becomes economical. Penguins gather, slip, dive, and resurface with an efficiency that feels almost mechanical, until you notice the social choreography, pair bonds, group movement, constant communication. In an environment this extreme, cooperation is not optional, it is survival. What makes oceanographic remarkable is not just what it shows, but how it connects things. You begin in familiar waters, you pass through spectacle, you end in restraint. Warmth gives way to cold, color gives way to form, noise gives way to quiet. And somewhere along the way, the human scale disappears. Just as the Roman ruins earlier showed how cities rise and fall, this place shows something older and more unsettling, that nature operates on timescales we do not control, in systems we barely understand, and with consequences that are already unfolding. You leave oceanographic not overwhelmed, but recalibrated, smaller, quieter, and more attentive. And perhaps that is the point. As I leave the city of arts and sciences behind, the architecture changes abruptly. Glass, steel, and modern curves give way to something much older, defensive, solid, and deliberate. I am heading towards the Torres de Serranos. It is one of the most important medieval monuments in Valencia. As the city landscape changes, suddenly it appears before me. These towers were built between 1392 and 1398 as part of Valencia's Christian city walls during the late Middle Ages. They were designed by the master builder Pere Balaguer, inspired by fortified gates in Central Europe. The primary function was defensive. This was the main northern entrance to the city. Anyone entering Valencia from the inland regions of Aragon or Castile passed through here. Structurally, the towers are made of limestone, with two massive polygonal towers connected by a central archway. The side facing outward is heavily fortified, while the inner side facing the city is more open. This design allowed defenders to monitor both incoming threats and internal movement. Originally, the Torres de Serranos were part of a much larger wall system enclosing medieval Valencia. Most of those walls were demolished in the 19th century to allow the city to expand. These towers survived because they had already taken on a different role. From the late 16th century until the 19th century, the Torres de Serranos were used as a prison for nobles. This was not a common jail. It housed aristocrats, military officers, and political prisoners. The thick walls that once defended the city now confined it. Ironically, this prison function helped preserve the towers. When much of the wall was destroyed, the Torres de Serranos was spared because they were still in use. As the day winds down, I return to Plaza de la Virgen, the square beside Valencia Cathedral, one of the oldest and most lived spaces in the city. By night, history loosens its grip here. The stones are still medieval, the cathedral still towers over the square, but the atmosphere belongs entirely to the present. Street performers take over the open space. No tickets, no stages, no boundaries. Just people stopping because something caught their attention. This is not curated culture, it's lived culture. And standing here, watching this unfold, the thought becomes unavoidable. Life everywhere follows the same rhythm. The language changes, the faces changes. But the need to gather, to perform, to watch, to pause at the end of the day, that is universal. I walk away knowing this. Places may be different, histories may be distant, but the way people live them is remarkably the same. And that's how this day ends.